Dvigidavatar. Amsha Shakya Vesharupe Dvigidavatar. Amsha Shakya Vesharupe Dvigidavatar. Balya Poganda Dharma Duita Prakar. 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 Amsha Shakya Vesharupe Dvigidavatar. Amsha Shakya Vesharupe Dvigidavatar. Balya Poganda Dharma Duita Prakar. Balya Poganda Dharma Duita Prakar. Amsha Shakya Vesharupe Dvigidavatar. Amsha Shakya Vesharupe Dvigidavatar. Balya Poganda Dharma Duita Prakar. Balya Poganda Dharma Duita Prakar. Okay, word for word. Amsha of the plenary expansion. Shakti Avesha of the empowered. Rupe in the forms. Dvivida two kinds. Avatar incarnations. Balya childhood. Poganda boyhood. Dharma characteristics of age. Dui two. Da certainly. Prakar kinds. Translation, repeat after me. His incarnations are of two kinds. Namely partial and empowered. He appears in two ages. Childhood and boyhood. His incarnations are of two kinds, namely partial and empowered. He appears in two ages, childhood and boyhood. Purport given by His Divine Revelation of Prabhupada Ki. The Vilas forms are 6 in number. Incarnations are of two varieties, namely Shakyavesh, empowered, and Amshavesh, partial. These incarnations also come within the category of Prabhav and Vaibhav manifestations. Childhood and boyhood are two special features of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, but his permanent feature is his eternal form as an adolescent youth. The original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is always worshipped in his eternal adolescent form. Amsha Shakya Vesharupe Dvigidavatar. Balya Poganda Dharma Duita Prakar. Om Gnanatimidam Dasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Vishram Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Swaparantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Paramahanam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sarvina Raghunatam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijna Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishavanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so his incarnations are of two kinds, namely partial and empowered. He appears in two ages, childhood and boyhood. So, okay, so this is it's quite a technical section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Actually, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when it first starts, it starts quite technically because it's trying to establish Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's divinity, and so here it's talking about obviously his different types of incarnations that he has, and also like why does he have these different kinds of incarnations. And if you look at the purport here, it talks about again, it talks about Vilas, it talks about Avesh, Amshavesh, Shaktavesh, Prabhav, Vaibhav. So I think what we'll do is we'll start off by just doing our best to mean, and then we're going to look at these about why Krishna and why is there a need to know about the different types of incarnations. So I'll be very brief, and I'm sure obviously I can see Kartik Chandra Prabhu has arrived as well. I'm sure Prabhuji will elucidate more in tomorrow's class, because the next verse will talk more about this as well. But just on a basic understanding, you have here Vilas, and there's another opposite to it, which is Prakash. So Vilas forms and Prakash forms of Krishna. The Prakash forms, and this is something that actually is mentioned earlier on in the Adi Leela in chapter 1 as well. The Prakash forms are incarnations of Krishna which are just like him, like in his eternal forms that he has in the spiritual world. Yeah, he replicates himself exactly as he is in his eternal form, and he can then multiply those forms and they look exactly the same. So for example, when he was marrying the 16,108 queens of Dwarka, for those of you who know the pastime, you'll know that he literally expanded himself. So that's why Narad Muni was getting bewildered, because it's the same Krishna with the same features in every single palace that he's going to, he was saying the same form. Similarly, when Krishna was having his leelas, his eternal spiritual leelas with the gopis in Vrindavan, in the Ras Leela, the Rasa Panchadhyaya, all these different rasic pastimes, we know that Krishna was expanded himself exactly as he is with each gopi. So that each gopi was feeling that it was that same Krishna form was reciprocating with them. So this is what we call Prakash forms, where it's the same forms that is being Krishna's expanding. Then we have the Vilas expansions. These are slightly different, where they are Krishna, but there's a slight difference in their features in relation to the original Krishna. So the first Vilas expansion that we have is Lord Balaram. Okay, and then from there it goes further. It goes more and more, like developed. So for example, we've got Balaram. Then of course we've got the Narayan form of Krishna. If you know, Narayan is different from Krishna, right? He has 4 hands. I know a lot of people, especially a lot of you who come from Hindu backgrounds, will have this conception that Narayan is the original, or Vishnu is the original, and Krishna comes from Narayan. But actually, the Shastras are very clearly indicate that Krishna is the original. Narayan is actually a Vilas expansion of Krishna. So Krishna is the original from whom all these incarnations are coming. And then of course it goes further. Then after that you've got the Chaturvyuha expansions like Pradumna, Aniruddha, Shankarsan, etc., etc. Yeah. So like this, we have all these different types of expansions, but some are Prakash, which are like Krishna in his original forms, and some are Vilas, where there's a certain variation in the forms as well. But just to clarify, and again in Adi Leela, chapter 2, a few verses earlier, I'm sure you might have probably covered this in a few weeks back, in verse 61, it's also very much been clarified that Krishna is the original, and Narayan comes later. Brahma himself actually clarifies this. Actually, Brahma clarifies this in many examples. Like in a Brahma Samhita, there's a very famous verse Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadiradi Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. Ishvara Parama Krishna, right? The Parama, supreme Ishvara, controller, is Krishna. He is the beginning, the Govinda, this Govinda, who is Krishna, is the beginning and the end. He's the core, his form is full of eternity, knowledge and bliss, and he is the cause of all causes, the Sarva Karana Karanam. And there are many, many verses like this indicating Krishna being the original. And Krishna himself even says this in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 10, verse 8, one of the most famous verses that we all learn when we start to learn verses in Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. I am the source of all spiritual material worlds. Everything emanates from me. Okay? So, like this, so these are just to clarify certain points. Then it goes a bit more. You can see in the purport here, Prabhupada also mentions that as well as the vilas forms, you have also these different expansions. They come in the category of Prabhav and Vaibhav. Again, so Prabhav meaning they are expansions. They can be temporary expansions or eternal expansions, but they possess the full potencies of Krishna. Like they possess all his potencies. Whereas you got the Vaibhav manifestations, which don't necessarily have all his potencies. They might have a certain select qualities of Krishna, and they're coming down just because they're basically fulfilling a certain purpose. But they don't have all of Krishna's qualities. They're coming literally for a specified purpose, but they can be temporary forms, or they can be eternal forms that are coming repeatedly throughout the history of the Vedic yugas, coming down again and again, but only with a partial potency, not full potency. Okay, sorry, I like I said, it's going to start off quite technical. We can go deeper. I mean, and again, I don't think we need to go super deep today, but in the Garga Samhita as well, in Canto 1, Chapter 1, verse 16, I believe it was Narad Muni actually, he's delineating again the different categories of expansions. These expansions can be divided into various different categories. So here we've got Vilas, Prakash, Prabhav, Vaibhav, but there's also other types of categories. For example, you've got Amsa, and again, I think Prabhupada, does he mention? Okay, he doesn't mention it. He mentions here Amshavesh and Shaktivesh. Shaktivesh meaning empowered, Amshavesh means partial. Okay, so those are part of 6 types of subdivisions. So you got what is called Amsamsa, right? Amsamsa meaning a part of a part. So these are basically plenary expansions. Okay, let me break it down even further. You have plenary expansions, meaning they are expansions of Krishna possessing his full qualities. But they could be replicated again and again and again. Just like the example is given, you've got a recording professional, and they have the digital recording. You've got the original soundtrack. Then they replicate it again and again and again and again. So let's say the first replica is like, copy 1, then copy 2, copy 3, copy 4, like that. It's the same soundtrack as the original. It's not that the soundtrack has changed. It's not a remix, right? It's the same thing as the original, but it's just been copied again and again and again. So this is basically like Amsamsa, is a part of a part of a part, but each part is plenary, meaning that is equal in relation to the qualities of the original. However, it's also mentioned that even though they may seem exactly the same, but when you copy something, if you talk to digital recording professionals, they always want to use the original. They don't actually want to use the copies. Why is that? The sound quality just goes, it's not exactly the same. So similarly with Krishna, there is Krishna the original, right? So he possesses all the qualities in full. And so therefore you have the distinction between Krishna the original, like Prabhupada says, the original candle, and then you've got the other candles from which Krishna is lighting. And They are the same as him, but there's a difference between the original and the the expansions. So that's Samsa. Then you got Amsa. Amsa is basically just a direct copy one, basically. So Samsa means part of a part of a part. Means the direct one, the straight from the original. Direct expansion from Krishna. And remember that from Krishna, he can expand himself directly into different forms. So these Amsas come with different forms, but they're directly coming from Krishna. Some of these direct expansions could be in Vishnu Tattva, so in Mother, they're divine like him. Some could be Jiva Tattva, so that means they're taking on more of a human quality. Like, well, I say human, like Lord Brahma. You can't really say that Lord Brahma's human like us, but he's Jiva, he's a living entity like us. Okay? Then we have here Avesh. Over here, Prabhupada says Shaktavesh. So Shaktavesh, or you can also shorten it to Avesh, means entering into a jiva, where Krishna enters into a jiva to empower them. Now, have you guys heard of the term Paramatma? Right? This is different from Paramatma, because Paramatma is where Krishna is there within you, he's observing you. He's not necessarily interfering though in what you're doing, right? On a direct day-to-day basis. But with the Shaktavesh, with the Avesh incarnation, Krishna is actively coming in and taking control of you, empowering you with qualities that you not necessarily would have had before, to help, to empower to fulfill a certain purpose for him. So we have Shaktavesh incarnations as well, who are blessed by Krishna to fulfill a certain purpose. Like, for example, Vyasdev is a Shaktavesh avatar. He's the literary incarnation of Krishna. There are many other empowered incarnations, so they're not necessarily like a plenary expansion of Krishna. They are beings, but who Krishna has entered into to empower them with certain purposes and qualities. Okay, and then it goes further and further. So the various different types of incarnations, and there are various categories, like I mentioned. And the question is now that with all these categories, why do we have to know about all these things? It seems rather too technical. We come to Krishna consciousness to relish and experience a higher pleasure, and this seems a bit like schoolwork. You're having to find out all these different things. Okay, so Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Siddhanta bolyachite nakarash, iha hoite Krishna lage shudrdi manas, which means that, I'll paraphrase because I don't have the verse in front of me, but it's imperative for us to know the Siddhanta, and one should not be alash, one should not be lazy in understanding the Siddhanta. In fact, if anything, it behooves us to know as much as we can about the Siddhanta to strengthen the mind, right? If we want to understand and experience the deeper rasa and the deeper pleasure that we can get with Krishna, first we have to understand the tattva, right? We know that ultimately we're here to experience love with Krishna. In fact, Srinath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives a beautiful quote in the Chaitanya Manjusa. Okay, I'll try and recite it. Aradhyo Bhagavan Rajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachitupasana Vrajavadu Vavargena Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramalayamalam Prema Pumatho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatradhara Para. So in this verse, this is, if you want to know what is the purpose of Krishna consciousness, it's basically captured in this verse. Again, I'll paraphrase. The goal of all souls is to give love and be loved. all of us, we're looking for love. No matter what situation you're in, no matter what kind of condition you're in, everyone's trying to experience some sort of love. Giving love is the object of that love. Because, in this material world, we're trying to expose our desire for love in different ways, on different things, on this person, on this project, on this nation, on this ism, on this society, or this ideology. We see that right now, especially in the world. People are so passionate about their ideologies. You're left wing, I'm right wing, and all that kind of stuff is going on. Democrat, Republican, Hindu, Muslim, whatever it may be. But the thing is, where do you actually give that love? So any ideas where that love should be going? Well, we are the Atma, we're the soul. Our goal is to give love and be loved. Now the question is, as Atmas, where do we give that love? Yes, Krishna. Now, specifically, which form of Krishna? Considering we've been talking about the different forms of Krishna, which form of Krishna? Krishna of? That's right, yes, Prabhuji. Krishna of Vrindavan, right? Krishna of Vrindavan specifically. And then we follow in examples of the exemplary devotees who are experiencing that love. So, according to that verse, that means the gopis of Vrindavan, right? And then, of course, when we say follow, it doesn't mean that we imitate them. It means that we learn from them on how to actually develop that love. And the best we can learn from it is through the scriptures, like Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, Prema Pumata Mahan, right, is there to give us that prema. So here's the thing, we want to experience that deep love, that deep connection with Krishna, but we need to go through the slog first. We need to actually understand the philosophy. That's how we have to know about this Amshaveshan, Shaktaveshan, Prabhavan, Vaibhavan, all this technical stuff. At least do your best in trying to understand it anyway.
Krishna Vrindavan is the boy.
Krishna Vrindavan, yes. The adolescent boy, yeah. Actually, that's an interesting point you mentioned there, because we're going to talk about the fact that there is the eternal form of Krishna in Vrindavan, which is the adolescent form, but there are also other forms of Krishna that he will manifest for our pleasure as well. Okay, so yeah, we want to experience that love with Krishna. It's called rasa, right? We know that Krishna is all about rasa. That's why he's known as Rasaraj. He's known as Rasika Shekhar. He's known as Rasanath. He's known as Rasika Raya. I've got a godbrother called Rasika Raya, so when I saw that, I just immediately thought about him. He's also very Rasik by nature as well. Anyway, right? So then, and Rupa Goswami says, Krishna is Akhila Rasamrita Mukti. Right? He's the complete embodiment of rasa. So rasa means beauty, it means mellow, it means taste, it means relationship. And this is actually what we want to experience. Unless we experience that rasa, we're never going to be satisfied. Yeah? There is nothing in this material world that can give you that level of rasa. Every time you try to do something to a world, it might give some initial little bit of rasa, but eventually you get frustrated, you get tired of it. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how beautiful you are, or any of those things, you have to connect with Krishna. And that's why even in Krishna consciousness, we have to, our motivation for practicing Krishna consciousness has to also go beyond wanting for ourselves, right? Because often what happens, we come into Krishna consciousness, there are different types of people coming, Chaturvida Bhajante Mam, right? There are different motivations. Some people, they come out of a sense of bhaya. They need protection, fear of the world that are outside, so they come to Krishna for shelter, especially in probably Kali Yuga, right? Or it's fear of God himself, that, oh, let me actually, go submit to you, because otherwise I'm going to get punished, right? Bhaya. Then there's a higher level than that, which is asha. I want to actually submit to Krishna because I desire something. I want some sort of material desire. Give us this day our daily bread, or something even more than that. Give me a Mercedes, please, Lord Krishna. In the manner on the Sundays gets very busy. We have devotees coming, like they'll pray, oh Krishna, my daughter, please grant her a very good husband. Krishna, please bless my car. Really, we actually do blessings for those of you that are here. don't know, we do car blessings at the manor. When I first joined the manor, I thought that was a joke. Then I realized it's actually a true thing. Anyway, car blessings, Krishna, my son is going to do his chemistry GCSE next week. Please, can you please bless him that he can get an A star? Right? So Asha is there. Don't worry. We're not saying we're judging you if you have these desires. Above that, you've got bhaya, asha, then you've got kartavya, which is duty. You come to Krishna out of a sense of duty that you want to just, it's part of your heritage, it's part of your culture, it's part of your sadhana. It's something that you do. It's part of your dharma, basically. It's my dharma to worship Krishna. I have my swadharma and I have my sanatan dharma. And no matter what happens, come rain, sleet, snow or shine, I'm going to make sure that I do my dharma every day in worshipping Krishna. This is well and good, right? Whatever your motivations are, most of us, if you were to analyze why we're here now in Krishna consciousness, it's probably a mixture of those things. But then there's the highest one, above bhaya, asha, kartavya. What's the highest motivation? I'll give you a clue, it starts with P. Prema, yes. Reason why we should be coming to Krishna. And satisfaction. Then you'll experience that deep love of where you won't get let down ever again. Yeah? If you are coming to Krishna consciousness with let's say the inferior motivations, that's okay as well. Because it's also said in the Padma Purana, Akama sarva kamova moksha kamudadadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purusham param. Whether you have many desires or no desire, akama means no desire, or sarva kama, all the desires in the world, or just desiring liberation. The fact that you're coming to Krishna in itself is amazing. So all of you are coming, you might think, oh, maybe I don't actually have that deep love. That's okay. You're here, stay here. If you're going to experience, if you want to desire something, then best go to the main person, right? To get your desires fulfilled. But then we want to also see how we're progressing in our desire as we practice our Krishna consciousness. And then the next part of that verse, Tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purusham param. Tivrena means intensifying. You have to then intensify your bhakti practice to then experience that deep rasa with Krishna. Yeah. If you look at all those devotees in the Shastric pastime who've had that deep rasa with Krishna, like for example, and Devaki, right? They got that exalted position of being Krishna's parents. They did so much austerity over so many lives. They used to be called Sutapa and Prishni in their previous lives, doing tapasya for thousands and thousands of years, deep meditation and bhakti towards Krishna before they can get it. So all of us have to develop that intensity to Krishna. And this can be applicable to all of us. It doesn't matter who you are or what stage you're at, or what life situation you're in, because some of you might say, oh, but Krishna, you know what, I'm working outside, I've got a 9 to 5, I've got 2 kids. That's okay. You can still intensify practice. Intensifying practice doesn't just mean increasing the quantity of service that you do, because we've got finite hours. It can also mean developing the quality of the service that we're doing for Krishna. How can I refine the quality of my service towards Krishna? Yeah. I remember my Guru Maharaj actually, because in the initial days, I was asking, Maharaj, I don't know, I'm trying to fit in all these things, but I can't. He says, Krishna consciousness is not just about, just trying to do everything. Sometimes it's about not just doing everything, but doing something, but doing it very nicely with a lot of heart. Ironic, because my Guru Maharaj actually did a lot of things, actually. But he actually said that. What was it? Yeah, so quality of service is there. Also, taking difficulties for Krishna. The other day, Keshav Maharaj was giving a seminar back at the manor, and one devotee asked that, how do I embrace consciousness? What should I do? And Maharaj said, like this whole idea of going and doing super ice cold showers at 1 o'clock in the morning, or doing some next level tapasya, or doing Nirjal Ekadashi on every single Ekadashi throughout the year. You don't need to do this. If you want to really take difficulty, go preach. all the difficulties come. I'm sure a lot of you who are in France doing book distribution, I'm sure when you go to Paris and you're trying to distribute books in the main, like, Paris, center, you'll see how difficult it is, right? Like, no merci, They'll keep saying that. It's the most difficult thing. To try and preach and give Krishna to others is very difficult. What to speak of going outside of here? I mean, even here, Lochananda Prabhu was telling us the difficulties devotees have had here trying to just maintain this place and develop it. Now, I think in the last sort of few years, New Mayapur Dham seemed to be getting up now, with more people coming and retreats and exposure. But it wasn't like this for many years. I mean, Gopaswami Prabhu was here. You've given us so many history talks about how it was after the initial days of Bhagavan Maharaj, and then after that it was like a desert. Just a few handful of devotees trying to maintain things. So yeah, difficulty can also help to intensify your rasa with Krishna. And of course, responsibility. Taking responsibility for others, again, very difficult. It's one thing to try and look after your own spiritual life, but then to try and look after someone else's, extremely difficult. So if one can do these things, one can then cross a threshold. So there'll be more purification in the process, no doubt. But the result of it is that you'll be able to develop a deeper motivation for connecting with Krishna. Okay, so getting back to the verse now again. If you look here, Prabhupada says here that childhood and boyhood are two special features of the personality of Godhead, but his permanent feature is his eternal form as an adolescent youth. Okay, so Prabhupada also mentioned in Krishna book in chapter 6 that that Krishna was lying there as a small baby. Doesn't mean that he was less powerful. This materialistic theory that God is like anthropomorphic is not correct. No living being can come and just become God. And so even when Krishna as a little baby, he's still all powerful as God. We know that from the past times, defeating these demons when he's a little toddler, right? And the whole idea is that he's doing these pastimes so that he can experience different rasa. So we talked about rasa and the need to experience rasa. And then rasa is not just one type of rasa. There's not just one type of mellow, one type of taste. There are different types of rasas that one can experience. Like I'm sure a lot of you've learned about, Sakya ras, Vatsalya ras, Madhura ras. So similarly, Krishna as well, because he's Rasanat, he's Rasaraj, he's Rasikarai. He wants to also experience different rasas with his devotees. So that's why he manifests himself in different ways. Like when he wants to experience Vatsalya ras, he then manifests as a little baby or as a little boy. Yeah, that's not his original form, but he does it just to reciprocate with his devotees. Yeah. When he would go out on the pasturing grounds and have loving games with his boyhood friends, all these things are just experience of different rasas. Now, it says that obviously you've got the Poganda stage and the Komara stage, which is his childhood, babyhood and childhood stages, which are basically special rasic manifestations that he does to have that special relationship with his devotees. Then after that, doesn't even know what is the next stage that comes after that. Okay, so after that he comes to what is called the adolescent age, which is the Kaishora stage. Yeah, Kaishora Lila. And by this time, this is where he's having the deepest rasic pastimes, which is the Madhura rasa, the rasa of sweetness with his associates. Okay, this is unique because this stage, the Madhura rasa, where he's having this Kaishora rasa, is actually the original stage, the original form that is in. So there's a beautiful verse here. I'll recite it. Swayam eva param rupam puri madhupuri vara vaya keshora kamdhyayam adhya eva parorasaha. Swayam eva param rupam. Of all rupas, of all forms of Krishna, his form, Shyamasundar, is a supreme form. Puri Madhu Puri Vara. And of all abodes where Krishna lives, Mathura or the Vraj area is considered the supreme. Because by the way, when he got onto the Keshura stage, he actually moved. He moved to Nandagram. Right? That's where he started to have, and that's where he started to have more interactions with Radharani and the gopis and things like that. Vaya Keshura Kam Dhyayam. Of all ages that Krishna manifests in his pastimes, the Keshura age is considered the most confidential, the most elevated in Rasik mellow. Adhya eva paro rasaha, and of all rasas, because Krishna has Vatsalya rasa, Sakya ras, Dasya ras, of all rasas, the mellow of this loving Madhura rasa, this mellow sweetness, is the most shining, is the most resplendent. That's what it's called Ujjvala rasa as well. We're not going to get too much into rasa, by the way. I just want to clarify that he has many rasas, but some of them he temporarily manifests for the pleasure of his devotees. But then he has his default, you could say, eternal rasa, which is this Madhura rasa of sweetness, the highest form as well. Right? So he goes through all these different rasas, and the important thing is that when he incarnates, because we're talking about incarnations in this purport, he has his internal reasons for incarnating and his external reasons. Every single incarnation of Krishna has an internal and external. So the external one, we know, Bhagavad Gita, it talks about, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadustutam, right? Re-establishing the principles of religion, righteousness, getting rid of all the demonic elements within the society and things like that. But then there's also an internal reason as well, which is to experience rasa with his devotees, whether it's as Krishna, whether it's Lord Ram, whether it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's external reason for coming was to do what? What was his external reason for appearing here?
Harinam Sankirtan.
That's right, Harinam Sankirtan, right? To deliver the fallen souls in the age of Kali through the chanting of the holy names. But then there's also internal experiences. He came because he wanted to experience the crying of
Advaita Acharya.
Advaita Acharya invoked Mahaprabhu to come.
Yeah.
My gut is telling me that still be under the external reason because it's to deliver the fallen souls. But there's also internal reasons why he came, because he wanted to experience the love that Radharani has for him, which he cannot fathom, because Radharani's love for Krishna is like millions of times more powerful than what Krishna's love is for Radharani, and that in itself is like incredible, right? So therefore, to teach the Yuga Dharma for the age, Harinam Sankirtan, to please his devotees, Advaita Acharya, which is kind of, it is partly internal because he's there to please the devotees, so that is true. But then there's also to give access to prema, right? And then there's also his own personal reasons, which is to experience the love that Radharani has. That's why he actually says, isn't it? Ei mata bhakti bhav kari angikar, apanicharite bhakti karile prachar, that I'm coming here as a bhakta of myself and teaching others what it means to be a bhakta, to develop that character of being a bhakta and then giving that understanding to everyone. Yeah. Okay, so I think I'm almost getting there. I'll share this. This is a nice little example. So, Gaur Govind Maharaj, he once said that Krishna, he's always looking for new experiences. Right? He's always looking for new experiences, but in all the rasas he had, actually Mahaprabhu's rasa is quite interesting because it's unique, because he's never actually come to experience the rasa of a devotee until he came as Chaitanya. Okay? Because he wanted to experience the love that Radharani has, right? Because Radharani's experiences happiness 10 million times greater than Krishna. This is a quote by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, right? Radha Bhava Duti Suvalikam Krishna Nami Swarupam. He takes the Radha Bhav and incarnates as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, here's an interesting point. Krishna has greed. He has greed to try and experience something. This is what Gaura Govind Maharaj is saying. He's always looking for new experiences. When the Lord had the greed to fight, what rasa did he come down as and with whom? When the Lord wanted to come and fight, what incarnation did he come as and who was it with? Any ideas? You'll know this. Huh? Varaha. Varaha, not in this case, but actually, no, you're right. Sorry, Prabhuji, you're right. Yes, Varahadev. Because Varahadev had a fight with who? Hiranyaksha. And then he comes again as Narasimhadev and has a fight with Hiranyakashipu. So he fought with Jay and Vijay. So that fighting rasa, Virya rasa, I believe it's called, got satisfied. But then it goes further. He wanted to experience the love of, the fatherly love, like the love that, of, the son being loved by his father. So then who did he come as and who did he enjoy that rasa with? Ram. And then who was it with? Dasara. Yeah, absolutely. Embodiment of fatherly love. Then he wanted to experience perfect wedded love. Again, Ram, yeah? And who's it with? Sita Devi. Okay, then he wanted to experience perfect unwedded love. Yes, Gopis, Krishna, all that, yeah? Remember, this is rasa, yeah? Divine rasa. So please do not think that we can emulate these examples here. Okay, just, we can definitely not, yeah? And so, so Ram came as Krishna. Krishna was obviously experiencing these beautiful rasas with the gopis. So he experienced all these rasas, but not the love that a devotee experiences towards the Lord. That's why he comes down as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to experience Radharani's love as well. Okay, so just to summarize, this purport, it talked about different forms of the Lord, different incarnations, Vilas forms, Shaktavesh forms, Amshavesh forms. Some forms are more internally orientated, some forms are more externally orientated, like a Shaktavesh avatar. Their purpose is more external because it's very much about trying to sort this world out. But then when he comes as his full expansions, then he's not just external, he has his internal purposes as well. Okay, and then obviously he has his Prabhav manifestations and his Vaibhav manifestations. As we mentioned, the Prabhav are those who are full in potency to him, and Vaibhav who are partially potent expansions of him as well. And then we talked about how there's childhood and boyhood are two specific features, but they're specific. But his eternal form is as the adolescent youth, because he's constantly in a state of Madhura Rasa. That's our mood in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, to experience that deep, deep sweetness, which is why the Gaudiya Vaishnava theology, even amongst the Vedic traditions, is considered the highest, because it's giving you the most intimate access to a relationship with Krishna in that kind of mood. So I'll turn here for today. We're about to finish now. Is there any comments, questions, queries?
A really brief question I asked. I think about it before. The boy form, the adolescent form, are they the same?
No, there's a difference there. The adolescent form is like a teenager.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting actually, because when Krishna manifests on Boma on the earthly pastime, because his youthful pastimes are always going on in the spiritual world, and so he's eternally like a 16-year-old boy. When he comes to earth, he goes from Poganda, Komara to Keshora quite rapidly. So by the time he gets to Keshora Lila, he should be a teenager, technically speaking, but he's 10 years old. The reason they say is that when he goes through the different rasas of being baby and the little boy, he goes through them at a faster rate than a normal human child would. The example is given just like you get those child prodigies that go through GCSE or whatever you have in France very quickly. and like they're like 15 years old and they're doing a PhD in university. You know, you get these child geniuses. So similarly with him, the life experience that he goes through at a faster rate than a normal kid would, right? But it says that once he reaches Keshwara Lila, that form that he has, that 16-year-old form, he then maintains that for the rest of his pastimes on earth, all the way up until, you know, he's 125 years old, finishing up his pastimes in Mahabharata.
Well, he's God, isn't he?
Of course, exactly. So the boyhood pastimes are different from the teenage pastimes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki. Jai.